No, nothing is needed beyond noticing it, in the same way that you notice a sense perception and look on it, feel it. Otherwise, the fear becomes a reaction and you withdraw and run back into identification with thinking, the familiar place. It feels so familiar. So then the fear pushes you, when you touch the space consciousness, sometimes it happens that fear arises. And then you touch it again and you go, and if you don't know that this is a very natural reaction, then the fear, you identify with the fear, you become the fearful entity that then withdraws again into the normal state of the. So to notice the fear is there brings about a freedom so that the fear is not totally possessing you. You're not totally identified with the movement of fear. You can see the fear in your energy field. And don't have to do anything. You allow that, and then you can look again at something, when the same thing that brought the fear. There is a gentleness when you allow the fear. There's a gentleness around it. Because so you're using the other portal now with the fear, which is allowing it to be. Then the fear itself is turned into a portal. First, it seems to prevent you from getting there. But if you then apply the portal of allowing it what is to be, it is, then the fear itself becomes a portal again. So first there was the portal of perception, clear perception, which brought about fear, or listening to the silence, which brought about fear. Then you notice the fear and allow it. The allowing is best expressed in a gesture that I would describe as this, where you hold it in a spaciousness, which is also, one could say, that gesture and that particular portal very much it's connected with the female principle of embracing. That's why you see sometimes with Mary statues, the arms like that. But that is the female principle. There's enormous power in that holding, embracing, receptivity, and there's a gentleness there. So when you allow something, including fear, there is that an inner holding it within this larger spaciousness. And it might even help for a little while to actually hold your arms like that, and then, because you can almost feel the space around it. And then whatever it is that you allow to be will turn into the portal. The worst things will turn into a portal. But the worse they get, the deeper the yes would have to be, and the deeper the allowing. And so see how everything that looks like an obstacle in your life, an obstacle to enlightenment, an obstacle to whatever, can easily be turned into an opening simply through non-resistance. And then every situation, even if it looks from a conventional mental viewpoint, even if it looks dreadful, very bad indeed, if you allow that which looks dreadful and very bad indeed, the strange thing is that every situation It's not just on the inner level that the shift happens, that the portal opens. The situation itself is turned from good to bad. It's the transmutation of good to bad. It's not, there's a famous story, unfortunately I don't remember the details of it, there are different versions, when a poor farmer, a horse comes to him, a wild horse, and all the people in the village come to him and say, "Aren't you lucky? You're so lucky that this horse, you have a horse now." And the farmer says, "Well, maybe so." And then the next day the horse, I think, leaves him again, and they all come, "Oh, you've lost the horse, you're so unlucky. First you had it." Just maybe. And then the horse comes back the next day with 5 other horses, and they come back and says, "Maybe." Then the farmer's son rides on the wild horse, and then is thrown off and breaks his leg, and the villagers come and say, "Oh, poor man, he cannot help you with the harvest." And the farmer says, "Perhaps, maybe." The next day the army comes to seek conscripts for the next war, and the son can't go with them, and they all get killed, of course. So the villagers come and say, "Aren't you lucky you kept your son because he has a broken leg?" Okay. Every event, he doesn't resist anything, and every seemingly bad event turns into good again. There are quite a few people in this room who have experienced bad events that they would never have chosen. If somebody said, "Do you want this to happen to you?" you would just say, "No." But it happened. And at some point, surrender happened. If not complete, substantial surrender happened. And then you see that which you never wanted was actually the best possible thing to happen for you. And it's a strange realization that whatever happens to you, when you align yourself with it, will turn out to be the best possible thing for you. The universe is not mad. Only you are mad. It's nothing personal. And of course, your madness is part of the universe too. It's a little game. So to see that whatever happens through the yes turns around. It's not only that you become free internally, and a dimension opens up that is beyond the form that this moment takes. Even on the level of form, a shift happens, and it turns around. And that's an amazing thing to realize. The similar story, which I have told a few times, the Zen master who was accused by a 17-year-old girl who was pregnant of being the father in a town in Japan. And the parents came to him and said, "She has just told us she's given birth to this baby, and she has just confessed to us that you are the father. When she came to see you 9 months ago, it happened. She had a session with you, and all over the town the gossip started, and they all said how dreadful he could have done such a thing. But when they came to him, the parents, and told him about it, all he said was, 'Is that so?' In Japanese. I don't know what the Japanese... It may be something like, 'Ah, so,' or something like that. So the parents come and say, 'Here, we don't want this baby, it's your baby, you look after it.' First they say, 'You are the father,' and he didn't deny it. He said, 'Oh.' And then they said, 'Here, you have the baby, you look after it, we don't want it.' 'Is that so?' 'Oh, so, okay.' And then they left, and he started looking after the baby. feeding it, buying food. Nobody came to see him anymore because he had lost his reputation. But because he didn't live through a conceptualized sense of self, all that mattered to him was what this moment required. This moment, there was this baby, so he was feeding the baby. Without the conceptualized sense of self, the drama was in all the other people. They talked about it for months and months. The drama was not in him. There was only this moment, and he cared for the baby. A year later, the girl confessed that the master wasn't the father, but the boy next door. So the parents came running to the Zen master and said, "She's just told us that you are not the father." And he said, "Ah, so." And so we are terribly sorry, we made a mistake. Yes, so. And can we have the baby back now, please? We want the baby now. Is that so? Okay, here it is. That situation, which is potentially a dreadful thing for the Zen master, turned into good, only good. The baby was brought up the first year of his or her life by a Zen master. That's a good start in life. And the story symbolizes the state of it's an extreme version of non-resistance to what is. It wouldn't have to be literally like that. You could say, he could have said, "No, I'm not the father. But if you believe that I'm a father, what can I do?" Could say that also. This is an extreme form of being aligned totally with now, never resisting. And the good that comes out of a seemingly bad event through alignment, inner alignment with it. So it describes the state of not resisting the isness of now. Jesus has an even more extreme example, and again it's a symbol. It's to turning the other cheek means simply complete non-reaction. It's not necessarily, you don't have to take it literally, it's inner non-reaction. Inner non-reaction. Because usually somebody hitting you on the cheek would immediately produce a strong reaction. So he's not giving any prescription for external conduct, it's pointing to an inner state of being aligned, non-reaction. So and all evil turns into good through that. The situation turns around. You have to try it out in your life. But one could say that is only a byproduct of something deeper. The fact that the external situation also turns around is a byproduct of something deeper. At the deepest level, what matters is the inner, the arising of that depth, that spaciousness within yourself. To know that through non-resistance. And then there's the event, and here the allowing, the space that comes when you allow. And so you become free of depending on content of your life. As a byproduct of that, a little irony of the universe, when internally you become free of the content of your life needing to be in a particular way to satisfy you, you become free of that need for your life situation to be in a particular way to satisfy you, which most people have that great need. You become free of that, because knowing the depths of space consciousness is the most satisfying of all. That is the only satisfying state. So then the need for content to be in a particular way isn't there. And the irony of the universe is such that when you don't need for the content of your life to be in a particular way, it turns into, the tendency is for content to turn into good. Not without limitations ever, but it becomes harmonious because you're aligned with the totality. So a harmonious flow comes into your life, which often means it also improves the content as a byproduct. Precisely at the point when you don't need it anymore as a desperate inner need. So people have demands. They demand that the world should make them happy. It doesn't. It's not in the nature of the world to make you happy. You can try for a while. One could say the world is here to make you conscious, not to make you happy. And then when you're conscious, happiness is there, or something deeper than happiness is there, a joy that has a depth to it that is deeper than happiness. Happy, unhappy, happy, unhappy. Something deeper is there. So, not to see the ultimate non-satisfactory nature of content, when you see that, it gets better, because you don't need it anymore. So, strange. And many people realize in their own lives, when they let go of a demand that this or that should be in a particular way or should happen, the moment you completely let go of this inner should, it happens. So only, Jesus said, only be concerned with the kingdom of heaven, which means kingdom of heaven is a strange description he uses to describe the transformed state of consciousness. He has other descriptions for it, the pearl of great price, and all kinds of parables pointing to it. He's talking of only be concerned with finding the essence of who you are, then everything else comes. And I believe he said, all the things that you thought you needed will be added unto you, because you no longer need them. And of course, those things, they won't stay around forever either. Nothing does. They still have certain limitations, which are the limitations inherent in every form. But it's nice when certain things come for a while. Oh, nice. And then perhaps goes again, something else comes. Forms arise, are born, die. And you are beyond that. So you leave here, change of content, same space, and on the deepest level, it's true to say that you never really go anywhere. And so, phenomenal existence, with the world of form, the world of phenomena, continues in your life, in the space that you are, different configurations, forms, your life situation that make up your life situation. You may have certain problems in your life situation. The more you access the space of now, the more quickly problematic situations become resolved. Not by lying awake for hours on end and thinking about them. They don't become resolved. In fact, they don't become resolved through thought. Thought may be a final form that your realization takes of what the answer is, sometimes. But problems do not become resolved through thought. They were actually created by thought in the first place. So it's only by going beyond thought that the problem suddenly disappears. It may not even become resolved. It disappears from your field of vision. It may reveal itself to be only a mind form. People carry problems around, many people, that have no existence whatsoever except as a thought form. For example, fear of certain things that may happen to me. He may leave me, she may leave me. What if this could happen? And this can develop as if it were an actual situation. And then you look more deeply, you see, we pointed at this briefly already. When you look more deeply, you see that the entire existence of the level of human problems are only thought forms, not reality. Only a challenge can be there in the reality of now. What are the problems in people's lives? Physical, relationship, financial, finding life purpose, profession, work problems. And ultimately, all of them thought forms. Relationship problem. Let's talk about our relationship problems. Maybe we can work it out. Yes, up to a limited point, a little bit of talking may be helpful, like pain bodies. But unless presence arises in the relationship, you can't work it out. It's only the arising of space consciousness, of presence in the relationship, that it can deepen and it can go beyond problems and the need for problems. And as you know, that begins with listening to your partner when he or she speaks. The art of true listening. Listening in the field of aware presence, open. Not exclusively focusing on the content when you listen. The words, because then your vision becomes immediately content-based thought. You listen to the words and then your face goes, what do you mean? What do you mean by that? What do you... And immediately the reactive thought forms come up. No, that's completely untrue. I never said that. Why do you always accuse me of that? Yes, you always do. No, it's not true. I don't always do. There's no listening. There's just two mind forms. So not exclusively focusing on the form, because in true listening, you are there as space. You're not there as form. You can only truly listen if you are there as space, the space in which these words appear. And you allow them to appear. It's again, of course, connected with allowing what is to be completely. So you listen to another person, you are the space in which these words happen. And as you listen not as a reactive entity, but as receptive space. And that is the arising of presence, unconditioned consciousness in the relationship. And the words, if words come, are very different. If finally you do say something, those words are very different from words that arise out of the reactivity of the mind. So to be able to be with each other beyond the movement of thought, and not try to solve the so-called problems of the relationship only on the level of thought. The same applies with not just partner relationships, relationships with children. Space. Give the child space. Be there as space, as spacious presence for the child. But if you're totally identified with a thought form which is father, mother, and you're totally identified with a role which is a thought form, a conditioned thought form, then you interact with a child only through the role of mother or father. And how this role identity thinks a father or mother should behave to be a good father or mother. And the way they should behave is to tell them what's best for you, because I'm a good father, I'm responsible for it. Do this, don't do that. No, don't, you must do this. Have you done that? You trying to be good. And you get totally identified in the role, and then the mother or the father becomes excessively only father, the mother is only mother, and for the rest of their lives they can't get out of the role. Then the mother becomes stifling. If you only know yourself as mother without any spaciousness beyond the role, to be a mother without spaciousness is stifling for the child. It's narrow. When the child is 30 and you are 60, you will still be in the role of mother, and you won't even see that the child is an adult, and you'll be calling them up and telling them what's best for them, because you are trapped in the role, and in a thought form, a conditioned thought form. And so, yes, you are also a mother, you are also a father, but that's a tiny aspect, that's the form aspect. And any role that you totally slip into and identify with, which is a conditioned thought form, limits you and limits other people. So whatever role you play in life, you will have to play some roles. That's because on the level of form, we have roles. But to be trapped in a role is to be trapped in thought, in a conditioned thought form. And then you yourself are imprisoned, and the role will further imprison other people, because it will only interact with other people as roles also. Because if you are trapped in the role of mother, for example, you will push the child into the role of child and keep the child imprisoned in the role of child until they are 50 and you die, and you still imprison them in the role of child as you imprison yourself in the role of mother. Not that you cannot honor the form of being a mother, but all your profession. You can become I've seen people at universities so identified with their role of professor, after 30 years, they're totally that, and they speak like a book. And you can only watch and sometimes wonder, is there anything beyond the role left there? There's such identification with roles, and a few people are able to play their role, and yet something that is not conditioned remains as the essence, a spaciousness. And then always remains, there is a simplicity that remains, there is a gentleness that remains. You play the role, whatever your profession is, whatever your function in society is, you can honor it, but let it be there in the spaciousness of presence. And then you can be with a child not exclusively as your role, but you can be there in the child's life as spacious presence, and the child comes into that space. And then you don't talk to the child out of that like a mother talks to a child, a mother who knows better, of course, a child who always doesn't quite know what's best. No, from spacious presence, all is equal. And you actually speak to the child, words that come out of that are words that are being spoken to an equal. And you can listen to the child and be amazed how much wisdom can come off the child's mouth if you can only listen. Wisdom that if you were exclusively identified with the role, you wouldn't even hear, because you are convinced that the child doesn't know and you know, because it's the role of mother to know. And so all relationships never confuse the role with the depth of who that being is, and that depth is unconditioned. So the same in business. In many business interactions, people meet as their function, as their role. It's a prison. And it's liberating, and people who are not trapped exclusively in the role tend to be much more successful than people who are totally trapped in their role. Everybody loves them. It's little human interactions. Going to a restaurant, there is a human being playing the role of waiter or waitress. And temporarily, while you're sitting there, you are playing the role of customer. And people slip into these roles the moment they sit at a restaurant table, and the waiter imposes the role on you, and you impose the role of waiter on him or her. It's an absurd limitation of yourself and the other person. So can you be there when the waiter comes, or the waitress comes, a moment of spacious presence as the waiter or waitress comes into your field of vision? And you look, and then you honor the role that you are. You don't have to behave in a weird way. Then you say, I'd like the soup, followed by this and that. And the waiter also, the waiter tends to see you as your function there, as your role, and then traps you in that. if a waiter or waitress can be there for the customer also as spacious presence, that is so liberating. As a byproduct of that, they would get 3 times or 4 times the tips they would otherwise get. That's a little byproduct, because it is so liberating to be in the presence of presence. The space, anybody who comes to you offering space, people may not know why they feel so good. And so it's so important not to get trapped in the thought form of roles. Honor them, but be larger than that, so that the little role is there, but the unconditioned is known. And that is actually where true intelligence operates, not through the little role with the conditioned thinking that goes with that role. So in all human interactions, you are the bringer of space consciousness. It comes naturally with complete yes to what is this moment. You go beyond the form of this moment. This is how we started off today, saying, knowing the difference between form and formless, between the form as which you appear here and the formless reality that you are. The difference between the form as which I appear here and the formless reality that I am. I mentioned yesterday, if I saw myself as a spiritual teacher, would be a delusion. It's a temporary form identity. In other words, not really an identity, but simply a function. And then I walk out, and there's no what teacher? There's a being walking between the trees. There's no teacher left. Why carry that I am a spiritual teacher? And then with that would come other illusions. There would come the illusion that people come from different parts of the world to see me. And that would be a source for ego. It would be ego fuel on the one hand. The self would feel bigger. They have all come to see me. But on the other hand, there would be hidden fear. I hope I can live up to their expectations of me. I hope, oh my God, all these people have come. I'm not ready. I don't know what to say. So you're drawn between feeling bigger and feeling threatened. And this happens to everybody who is trapped in a form identity. And of course, nobody comes to see me. What for? They come for space, which is themselves. So they come because there happens to be an empty space here. And then they recognize themselves in that. And so the empty space within them, the unconditioned consciousness, arises. That's why they come, not to see a person. So, knowing the difference between the form that arises in the now and the depths or the space of now. And in this life, there are the 2 dimensions. The dimensions of form, in which there seems to be time, and the dimension of the formless. And most humans are lost in form in this world. You don't need to learn more about form. The world is full of learning about form. Universities are full of form knowledge. But essence, the world is hungry to know that which is beyond form, because that's the liberation from being trapped in form. Physical forms, but more importantly, trapped in thought forms, conceptualized identities of me, which link into certain physical things, make thought forms out of them, and then you carry that role, that conceptualized identity around with you, and it's never at ease for long, always incomplete, uneasy, fearful, needing more. I need more followers. I want people to follow me. Just come and follow me. I need more. Enron Corporation, we need more capital, more money, more. In an absurd attempt of the ego to complete itself. So this is the madness of the level of form when you only know that. When you know that which is beyond form, the world of form is quite okay. Actually, quite nice. It's beautiful. There's a dance that goes on, the dance of form, of phenomenal, which you experience as you walk away from here. The space of now is filled with other forms, and the dance continues. So, the essence of our retreat is not something that is now going to recede into the past. The form of this retreat as an experience is about to move into past and become a thought form, as all forms do. Future, present, and it's gone. The essence doesn't move. This gathering was not about experiencing certain interesting events on the level of form, even though one or two of you may have done that. The essence of this is to see that which is deeper than content. Sense perception and thought and emotion. Spaciousness. Stillness. Aware presence. Thank you for making this retreat possible. There would be no teaching without you. The ancient saying says, the teacher and the taught together produce the teaching. It's a single process. Ultimately, it comes out of you. Ultimately, you just recognized what you already knew, of course. The teaching comes out of you. Thank you to Marina for organizing this, and Christina and Kim and the helpers. Many people have helped to make this happen. Enjoy what comes into the field of now. and you are not what happens. You are the space in which it happens. As long as you know that, there's no problem. It can't be.